Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the Dion Gordon Podcast. I'm your host, the connoisseur of common sense, the purveyor of authenticity, the man that calls it right down the middle. Dion Tyree Gordon, enough of the bullshit. Let's get to work. We find ourselves down to the NFL's version of the Elite Eight, the NFL Divisional Round. Kansas City and Jacksonville, Philadelphia, New York, Buffalo, Cincinnati, and of course the main event of the weekend, San Francisco and Dallas, a rivalry renewed, the greatest playoff rivalry in the history of the National Football League for the 9th time in the history of the sport. It's 49ers and Cowboys in the playoffs. All four of these games are awesome. I can't wait to see what happens this weekend. 8 teams remain in the tournament, as some people like to call it, fighting for NFL superiority and football supremacy and overall world domination to find themselves in the most important event in the history of Western civilization, the Super Bowl, coming up next month in Glendale, Arizona. But before we get to that, we got to play the divisional round first. I think the majority of the teams playing right now are teams that we expected to still be alive at this point of the season. Buffalo, Cincinnati, Kansas City, San Francisco, Philadelphia, the Dallas Cowboys, a talented football team that won 12 games this season, unlimited potential and all kinds of hype because of who they are, America's team, quote unquote, the Dallas Cowboys. But people did have expectations that they could make it this far. On paper, they're a good enough football team to do it. And then you have the two outliers, the New York Football Giants and the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jacksonville Jaguars were the worst team in pro football last season. They had the number 1 pick 2 years in a row, the number 1 pick. They've been an awful franchise for about 5 or 6 years now, ever since the 2017 season where they made it all the way to the AFC Championship game with Blake Bortles at quarterback and Jalen Ramsey was on that team. They were pretty good that year. Leonard Fournette at running back, and they got all the way to the AFC Championship game, coming up just a little bit short against New England that year, and they've been horrible ever since. But here they are. They've resurrected themselves as a franchise. You replace an incompetent head coach in Urban Meyer with an actual competent head coach in Doug Peterson, someone who has a clue, someone who exhibits professionalism, a Super Bowl champion coach, knows what he's doing, has turned around Trevor Lawrence and made him into a viable NFL commodity. They're good. Jaguars are really good, and congratulations to them for making it this far and improving themselves as a team and as an organization. The New York Giants, before the season started, no one had them getting this far. I don't care who you are. The most ardent supporter of the Giants, the most diehard New York Giants fan, I don't think anyone saw the New York Giants making it to the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. No one believed in Daniel Jones coming into this season. A lot of people said this was going to be a make-or-break season for Daniel Jones on the last year of his rookie contract. For the most part of his New York Giants career before this season, he was underachieving, underperforming, not playing to expectations. This is a former first-round draft pick, a former top 10 pick in the NFL draft in 2018. A lot of expectations for this guy to be the next pretty good New York Giants quarterback in the line of Phil Simms and Eli Manning. And it wasn't working for the first half of his career. A lot of turnovers, a lot of poor decision-making. I would also say bad coaching. As I said on the last podcast, Joe Judge was a blithering idiot and had no clue what he was doing. Same thing, same exact dynamic as you see in Jacksonville. When you get rid of a shitty coach and bring in someone who knows what they're doing, it improves everything. It's night and day. It's a stark contrast. Now that quarterback that you didn't believe in, that you lost faith in, he now has demonstrated competency and aptitude for playing the position at the highest level. Daniel Jones has turned it around for the Giants. Saquon Barkley, also maligned, also derided for a number of years by the New York media, by Giants fans. People lamented about all the injuries that he's had. He had a really good rookie season and kind of fell off after that. Torn ACL, ankle injuries, all kinds of leg injuries. He's been healthy for the most part of this season, and he's running wild like Hulkamania. It looks like Penn State Saquon Barkley out there right now for the New York Giants. The defense is very good. The defensive line in particular, Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams, Azeez Ojulari, really quality, good football players on this team. The New York Giants are nothing to sneeze at. And a lot of people out there are drawing comparisons between this current Giants team and that 2007 squad they had and the 2011 squad they had. What did both of those teams have in common? They won the Super Bowl. They won the Super Bowl. Came out of nowhere, seemingly out of nowhere. 2007, they were a wild card team, played every game on the road, en route to going to Super Bowl 42 and upsetting the undefeated New England Patriots 17-14 to claim that championship, the third in franchise history. And then 4 years later, they get to Super Bowl 46 and once again beat the New England Patriots in that game in Indianapolis 21-17 to claim their fourth championship. People are looking at this current Giants team as being in the same vein as those Giants teams. They're very dangerous right now. I was very impressed with the way they played versus Minnesota. I think they've played good football the majority of the season. Had a little bit of a lull between late October and early December where they didn't even win a game for most of that time. They tied a game against Washington and lost a couple of games here and there. But they figured it out, and they're hot at the right time. They're hot at the appropriate moment. Their opponents this Saturday, the Philadelphia Eagles, are the opposite. They're kind of limping into the playoffs. Jalen Hurts, Lane Johnson banged up. They got injuries. They lost a couple of games down the stretch, even though that was with Gardner Minshew at quarterback. But still, the Eagles, to me, are not coming in with the momentum that they had to begin the season, early in the season, where they were playing lights out. But at the same time, they are the number one seed, and they've demonstrated that they can win football games in a multitude of ways. But let's start at the very beginning. The first game of NFL Divisional weekend, the aforementioned Jacksonville Jaguars going on the road to play the number one seed Kansas City Chiefs, the presumptive favorite in the American Football Conference. I think it's like a 7.5 or 8 point spread for this game. The Chiefs obviously are favorite. They're at home. They've been in the playoffs on a yearly consistent basis under Andy Reid and especially under Patrick Mahomes. Under Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs have never been one and done in the playoffs. They've at least won one playoff game in the playoffs since Patrick Mahomes was inserted as the quarterback one for the Kansas City Chiefs. 2018, they win the divisional game against Indianapolis. They lose the AFC Championship game to New England. 2019, unfortunately, much to my chagrin, they get to the Super Bowl and they beat the 49ers 31-20. I still need therapy for that game. 2020, they get back to the Super Bowl. This time they get curb stomped by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 31-9. Last season, they lose in the AFC Championship game to the Cincinnati Bengals. My point is, as long as the Kansas City Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, they're guaranteed to, at the very least, at the bare minimum, get to the AFC Championship game. That's fucking impressive. That's very impressive. As long as you got 15 under center, you got a fighting chance, a legitimate shot to go all the way and win a Super Bowl, to at least be one of the four best teams in the NFL. That's what they've done since 2018. So with that being said, I don't think Jacksonville can win this football game. I think they're going to put up a fight. I think it's going to be a good competitive game. The familiarity that both coaches have with each other, I think is going to have a major influence and impact on this game, obviously. Doug Peterson, once upon a time, not only played for Andy Reid in Philadelphia, also coached under Andy Reid. He was groomed to be an NFL head coach by Andy Reid. Fun fact of the day, Andy Reid's first game as the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, guess who was playing quarterback in that game? If you said Donovan McNabb, you are wrong. The correct answer is Doug Peterson, the current head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Student versus teacher, and also a rematch of a regular season game from Week 10. Kansas City won that game 27-17. They got off to a 20-0 start to begin that game, and unlike their division rival LA Chargers, they didn't choke, fail, and shit the bed and lose that game and blow the lead. They held on to win. In that initial encounter, the Jaguars dedicated themselves to playing coverage and tried to force Mahomes to find open space, sending a blitz just once the entire game. That strategy did not work. Patrick Mahomes completed 25 of 34 passes for 306 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick against 4 or fewer rushers. So it might behoove the Jacksonville Jaguars to send more pressure. Patrick Mahomes experienced the third worst decline in passer rating between passes attempted without pressure and with pressure, dropping from 119 when unpressured to 57.7 when under duress. Jacksonville might want to bring some heat. You got to get pressure. I mean, to me, that's the formula to shut down any quarterback. You got to get pressure. You got to hit the quarterback, rough them up, put some grass stains on their jersey, make them uncomfortable, get them off their launch point everything. Make them uncomfortable. Force the ball to come out of his hands quick. Bring pressure. To me, that's your only hope. You got to get him on the ground, too. I mean, that's easier said than done. Mahomes is very elusive, very quick on his feet, extraordinary mobility, deceptively fast. That's part of what makes Patrick Mahomes. He's a magician out there. He can make plays from any point on the field, any launch angle, any arm angle, any launch point. He can make plays with his legs. He can extend plays. He can scramble. He can get first downs. He can get touchdowns. He's the perfect quarterback. There's a reason why he is who he is. He is the best quarterback in pro football right now. And to me, that's not even up for debate. With all due respect and apologies to Joe Burrow and Josh Allen, 15 in Kansas City is that guy. He is that dude, numero uno, the man, the Don Dada, the best in the world in what he does. Patrick Mahomes from Texas Tech. He's the man. And stopping him is easier said than done. Defensively for Kansas City, they rank 11th in total yards allowed, 8th against the run, 18th against the pass. As a collective, they finished second in the NFL in total team sacks, 55 sacks on the season for the Kansas City Chiefs, being led, of course, by big number 95, Chris Jones, a goddamn fucking man out there. Chris Jones is awesome. That's one of my favorite players in the NFL. That dude wrecks games. He is disruptive. He's a force of nature up front, and Jacksonville's offensive line is going to have to figure out a way to block him and protect Trevor Lawrence from the carnage and mayhem that Chris Jones can perpetrate out there, because that dude is, like I said, that dude's fucking awesome. That guy's amazing. I think defensively for Jacksonville, they definitely got to do a better job of neutralizing the tight end, and unfortunately for them, they're going up against arguably, debatably, the best tight end in pro football in Travis Kelce. They struggled last week against Gerald Everett of the LA Chargers. He had 6 catches for $109 and a touchdown in that game. Gerald Everett is a very good tight end. Travis Kelce is a better tight end. So if you can't stop the tight end and you can't get to Mahomes, it could potentially be a long day or a very short day for the Jacksonville Jaguars, depending on how you look at it. I'm looking at all those factors. I'm looking at experience. I'm looking at the fact that Reed is 2-0 lifetime against Doug Peterson in that student versus teacher matchup. I'm looking at the fact that they are 4-0, that Patrick Mahomes is 4-0 in the divisional round in his career. I'm looking at the fact that they're coming off a bye week. They had the first round bye, and everyone knows Andy Reid is notorious for fucking teams up coming out of a bye week. You already know there's going to be new wrinkles in the offense, new formations. You might see that ring around the rosy formation they did against the Las Vegas Raiders. You might see a T formation, a wishbone, a flex bone. They might come out with a fumble rooski, hook and ladder, Statue of Liberty. Who knows what you're going to see from Kansas City this Saturday with an extra week of preparation for the mad scientist, Andy Reid, the best offensive mind in the sport. It's going to be fun to watch. I think it's going to be a good game, closer than people think. But overall, I think Kansas City wins this game with everything I already said. I'm looking at the Chiefs 31, Jacksonville 25. The best chance that Jacksonville has to spring a monumental upset is if running back Travis Etienne has a big game. If he goes off, if Etienne goes crazy in this game, Jacksonville has a chance. But if Kansas City can rein him in and keep him in check and do their thing offensively, you get Kelce going, get the running game going. Isaiah Pacheco, their running back. Jet McKinnon, once upon a time, played for my beloved 49ers and didn't do a goddamn thing. Not 100% entirely his fault. He was unfortunately injured, tore his ACL, tore it again, I think. Always battling knee injuries, couldn't quite get to 100%. He was brought in with the intention of being that Swiss Army knife for the 49ers that you currently see Christian McCaffrey occupying right now. A versatile football player. You can hand the ball off to him as a running back, split him out wide, throw it to him. He can run routes. Very good overall football player, but it just didn't work out in San Francisco. It has worked out so far in Kansas City. It seems like he catches a touchdown every week or runs for a touchdown. He's in the end zone every week for Kansas City. He's a solid contributor to what they got going on. Everyone thought at least that losing Tyreek Hill was going to handcuff Kansas City and limit what they're able to do offensively. I think people forgot who's playing quarterback for that team and who's calling the plays for that team. They got a whole litany of playmakers now surrounding Patrick Mahomes. It's not so much just try to get the ball to Tyreek Hill. It's Kelsey, it's McKinnon, it's Pacheco, it's Kadarius Toney, the guy they brought in from the New York Giants. McCole Hardman can kill you on a jet sweep because he's so fast. They got players. They got dudes on that roster, and you got the best quarterback in the league pulling the trigger for that. And like I said, an evil genius, a mad scientist on the sideline, orchestrating the whole thing. Kansas City is going to win this football game. I would be shocked. I would be absolutely flabbergasted if the Jacksonville Jaguars pulled this upset off. Moving on to the nightcap on Saturday night in this game, NFC East bloodbath, a crime scene, a knockdown, drag-out, a Donnybrook, a knife fight of a football game. Get the caution tape out for what's going to transpire Saturday night in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. It's going to be ugly on the field. It's going to be ugly in the stands. I'm setting the over-under at 12. And what I mean by that, not the point differential. I'm talking about the amount of fights that take place in the crowd for this game. This is an East Coast rivalry. NFC East, East Coast cities, high-strung, aggressive, animated people that talk with their hands. I'm from the East Coast. I know about this. I've known people from New York. I've known people from Philadelphia. They don't like each other. The people from the respective cities don't like each other. The teams don't like each other. This is going to be a fucking bloodbath, and I can't wait to see it. It's a night game, so motherfuckers going to be out drinking all day. Not only should there be cameras on the field, there should be cameras in the crowd. I want to see someone get a cup full of piss thrown at them in 4K high-definition television. I want to see that because it's going to happen. Someone's going to get a cup of piss thrown at them in this game. In the crowd, in the stands, in the parking lot. Who knows? Who cares? Philadelphia and New York. Let's talk about on the field, though. I kind of touched on it earlier, man. The resurrection of Daniel Jones, the resurgence of Saquon Barkley. But Philadelphia coming in a little banged up, kind of limping into this one. Jalen Hurts, Lane Johnson, as I said previously, they played each other twice, obviously division rivals. The first time was week 14. It was Philadelphia 48, New York 22. The second time, the last game of the season, week 18, Philadelphia 22, New York 16. But the Giants played a lot of backups in that game, a lot of reserves, a lot of second and third string guys, and made that game close and competitive. Jalen Hurts played in that game, his first game back from his shoulder injury that he suffered against the Chicago Bears. The game plan was very simple and formulaic, very cautious. We don't want to expose him to further injury. We're not going to call design run plays. We're just going to put Jalen out there as a pure pocket passer. And we want him to get comfortable and familiar and reacclimated to playing football in a live game and live NFL speed. We just want to get him back out there and get some reps under his belt and get him ready for the playoffs. Last week, the Giants secondary shut down and held Justin Jefferson in check. He only had 47 yards on 7 catches, no scores on 9 targets. Can they repeat that same performance this week versus A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith? However, last week, you saw T.J. Hockenson, the Vikings tight end, putting in work. He was killing it last week. He was the number 1 receiver for Minnesota in that game. Can Dallas Goedert, the Eagles tight end, can he replicate that same performance that Hockenson put in last week? Can he exploit the same areas of the field that T.J. Hockenson did a week ago in that game in Minnesota? Minnesota in that game, to me, abandoned the running game early. They only had 61 yards on 16 attempts. Philadelphia is going to carry the ball more than 16 times. You got to worry about Miles Sanders. Jalen Hurts is going to be used as a running back in this game. It's a playoff game. Everything is on the line. You got to lay it all out. Everyone's hurt this time of the year. Everyone's banged up. Everyone's battling some kind of ailment or injury or whatever. You got to figure it out and deal with it going forward. So in that last game of the season, in the regular season, Jalen Hurts, primarily a passer. In this game, he's going to have to be a dual-threat quarterback. That's his game. That's who he is. He's going to have to carry the ball and help out in that Eagles running game. In Week 14, they put up 253 yards rushing against New York. In Week 18, 135. New York on the regular season was 27th in rushing yards allowed. So you're going up against Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders, Boston Scott. That could potentially be harmful for you if you're the New York Giants or a fan of the New York Giants. Who knows? But can they shut down that running game? Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams, all those guys up front are going to have a big game. That's where well, to me, every game is decided up front in the trenches, the offensive line, the defensive line. But in this game in particular, in this knife fight, crime scene, bloodbath of a football game that I'm pretty confident is going to be, the play up front and in the trenches is going to be critical. The Philadelphia Eagle pass rush, the best in the NFL, 70 sacks on the regular season. That's 15 more than the second highest total, 55 from Kansas City. 70 sacks, Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat coming back off an injury, Brandon Graham, Javon Hargrave, Fletcher Cox. Very, very talented and stout front for the Philadelphia Eagles. On the back end, you got Bradbury, you got Slay. This is a good team, obviously. Number one seed in the NFC, the best record in pro football this year. These guys are good. And defensively, to me, that's the strongest part of the team. As good as they are offensively, Jalen Hurts was in the MVP conversation up until he got hurt. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Goddard, Sanders, Boston Scott, etc. But to me is what they're capable of doing defensively. Can they speed up the clock on Daniel Jones? He really wasn't under all that much pressure last week. Can they apply that pressure in this game? The biggest flaw for the Philadelphia Eagles defense is their run defense. So if I'm New York, I want to make this a game for Saquon Barkley. If he goes off, if Barkley has a big game, or in general, if they can run the football against Philadelphia, they got a great chance to win this game. And also, obviously, winning the turnover battle. Those two things both conspired against Philadelphia in their first loss of the season on Monday night against the Washington Commanders. They lost the turnover battle. They had 4 turnovers in that game, 3 fumbles and 1 pick, and the Commanders ran roughshod all over their defense. If New York can figure out a way to copy and paste that game plan, that formula on Saturday night, they got a great chance to win this game. Run the football, keep Hurts and company off the field, and see what happens and take your chances. Also, don't turn the ball over. I feel like overall this game is almost too close to call. I want to reluctantly, very cautiously, with a lot of doubt and trepidation, say that, there's always at least one upset divisional round weekend. There's always at least one top seed that gets knocked off. Do I want to go in that direction? Do I really want to say that New York is going to walk into Philadelphia on a Saturday night and upset the number one seed Philadelphia Eagles? I just can't bring myself to do that. I think Philadelphia wins the game 25-23. 25-23, Eagles over the Giants. The Eagles, 7.5-point underdog. Over-under is 48. Yeah, I'm going to stick 25-23. So they push on the over-under, but the Giants cover the spread, but the Eagles win the game. It can go either way. As well, any football game can go either way. It's a 50-50 proposition. But in this game, I can see a path for the Giants to win. I just don't think they can or they will. I think it's too many ifs. It's a lot of ifs. Like if they can force 3 or 4 turnovers, if they can run for 150 yards, if Daniel Jones doesn't turn the ball over, if Saquon Barkley has a big game. It's too many ifs for the Giants. I think for the Eagles, home field, rested, 1 week off, they should be able to pull this out. So, yeah, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Philadelphia 25, New York 23. Wouldn't be surprised, though, if the Giants won this football game. So on Saturday, I think the home teams win. Kansas City moves on. Philadelphia moves on. Both number one seeds, to me, are going to play in their respective conference championship games. So there's got to be an upset. There's got to be one road team that walks into an unfriendly, raucous, hostile environment and comes out with a victory. And to me, that's going to take place in Orchard Park, New York. I think Cincinnati wins that game against Buffalo. I really do. Now, the Bengals are kind of limping in with a patchwork offensive line that lost a couple of bodies last week against Baltimore. They're not that great up front, but it's not like Buffalo has an elite pass rush either. I mean, Von Miller is hurt. He's out for the season. He's not going to play in this game. They brought in Von Miller to be that playoff closer, to get pressure and get sacks late in playoff games, to take the opposite quarterback and put him on the ground, whether that be Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes or whoever. But unfortunately, Von Miller blew his knee out on Thanksgiving versus Detroit, so he's not there right now and won't be. I think the Bengals are ripe. I think the Bills are ripe for the picking. I think I'm concerned about Josh Allen, man. Is Josh Allen going to come in and once again try to play hero ball and try to metaphorically pull up from 35 feet like the football version of Steph Curry and make some kind of spectacular highlight reel play every single down? Because that's what he tries to do, and that's what gets him into trouble. He turned the ball over 3 times last week, 2 picks and a strip sack fumble that got ran back for a touchdown. He's been turning the ball over a lot this season. He's an extraordinarily talented and gifted player, a great athlete, an electric live arm. The most arm talent of any quarterback in the NFL right now, to me, is Josh Allen. He's awesome. But that propensity to turn the ball over and always trying to do something spectacular hurts him. It comes back to bite him. And the lack of an overall running game for the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen is also their best running back. The guy tries to be Superman every week. The offense, the team itself, kind of asks him to be Superman every week, and that's not sustainable. It's not a winning formula. That's not conducive to winning playoff games. He's a great player. He can do a lot, but he can't do everything. It's going to take other guys to put the Buffalo Bills in that conference championship game. I don't think they have enough. I think the Bengals defense is good enough. I'm a huge fan of Joe Burrow and Higgins and Chase and Boyd and mixing out the backfield. A lot of weapons on that Cincinnati Bengals offense. Yeah, I think we're due for an upset. I think it's going to take place in Buffalo. I think the Bengals can narrowly win this game. I mean, to me, I feel like Cincinnati is going to come out the AFC for the second consecutive season. I think they're the best overall team in the AFC, even with the deficiencies up front on their offensive line. They had those same deficiencies a year ago, and they still went to the Super Bowl anyway. They have an offense, and in particular a quarterback that's good enough to compensate for that. And I just don't like how reckless and careless Josh Allen has been with the football all season long. They got away with it last week because the opposing quarterback was Skylar Thompson, who honestly isn't that good. And Joe Burrow is exponentially better than Skylar Thompson. So can you get away with being that reckless and irresponsible with the football when the opposing quarterback is one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the entire league? I don't think you can. This game, of course, is a rematch of that Monday night game in January 2nd, a couple weeks ago, that unfortunately did not get completed because of the on-field cardiac arrest, the traumatic event of Damar Hamlin, the Bills safety who collapsed on the field and was taken off the field in an ambulance. A scary situation, obviously, already been talked about, already been covered. Fortunately, he's recovered from that. Happy to report that. And according to a report that I read earlier, Damar Hamlin was at the Bills practice facility today in the locker room, interacting with his teammates, his first time being back around his teammates since that on-field collapse. That's got to give them a boost and a spark. And if he's at the game on Sunday, that's going to be an unbelievable scene. Bills Mafia is going to be going crazy, losing their shit. It might snow this weekend. Chance of precipitation pretty high, about 1 inch of snow in the ground for that game. It's going to be a wave of emotion throughout the entire stadium if Damar Hamlin is there in the building physically. Oh, man, that's going to be crazy. That could lift Buffalo to a win. They could get that boost, that emotional and psychological boost from seeing their fallen teammate in the stadium. That could be that's a legitimate thing. That could really propel them to doing something spectacular this Sunday. But I still don't think it's going to be enough. Emotion can only take you so far. There's only so long you can play off of emotion. And I think they've played under so much emotion ever since that happened. It might wear them down. They might be psychologically and mentally worn down from the whole Damar Hamlin situation. I think all that being said, all that being considered, Cincinnati wins this game. The magic number for this game, the number 5. And what do I mean by that? Well, in games where Joe Burrow gets sacked 5 or more times, Cincinnati's 0-3. In games where he gets sacked fewer than 5 times, Cincinnati's 13-1 this season. And I realize they're missing a lot of people up front, but I'm going to say Joe Burrow gets sacked 4 times in this game. That's less than 5, obviously. And the Bengals win this game 34-30. 34-30. I realize that Sean McDermott is 4-0 at home in the playoffs, but with all due respect, you're going up against Indianapolis with a geriatric, prehistoric Phillip Rivers at quarterback. They beat Baltimore, but Lamar Jackson honestly is terrible in the playoffs. They absolutely eviscerated New England last year at home in the playoffs, 47-17. Mac Jones, to me, is severely overrated. And then you got this past victory last Sunday against Miami being led by Skylar Thompson. So with all due respect to all four of those quarterbacks, none of them are on the same level as Joe Burrow. He's way better than all those quarterbacks. It's a much stiffer challenge this Sunday. So, yeah, I like the Bengals 34-30 in this game. I think this is going to be an entertaining football game. Probably, all things considered, the best game to watch this Sunday from an entertainment standpoint. Close game, competitive, high-level, elite quarterback play in this game. The best quarterback matchup of the weekend. But I like Cincinnati 34-30 to come out on top. Now we get to the main events of divisional round weekend. We get to the prize possession, the crown jewel, the piece de la resistance, the biggest game of the weekend taking place in Santa Clara, California, Levi's Stadium, home of the 5-time Super Bowl champion and hopefully soon to be 6-time champion San Francisco 49ers against America's team, God's favorite football team. Did you know that the reason why there was a hole in Texas Stadium back in the day and currently a hole in AT&T Stadium, did you know the reason for that? It's because God wants to watch his favorite football team play, America's team, Dallas Cowboys. 9 times now. This will be the 9th time in the history of the NFL playoffs that these two storied, signature, landmark, iconic, historic franchises in the National Football League will match up in the playoffs. You look at the history of this. My God, I love this. First and foremost, I wanted this matchup. I couldn't wait to see it. I cannot wait till Sunday. I wanted this. I wanted Dallas and San Francisco, 49ers and Cowboys. This is my childhood. Growing up in the 90s, 3 consecutive seasons, 92, 93, 94, Dallas and San Francisco. Unequivocally, without question, those two franchises were the best teams in pro football during those years. Those NFC championship games were the real de facto Super Bowl. It didn't matter. It was inconsequential who represented the AFC in the Super Bowl. It was guaranteed they were going to be on the receiving end of a universal beatdown. They were going to get dragged, mollywopped, curb stomped, chokeslammed through a flaming table with thumbtacks on it, get the shit kicked out of them. 7 different shades of shit beat down their leg by either Dallas or San Francisco. You don't believe me? Ask the 90s Buffalo Bills. Ask the 94 San Diego Chargers. Super Bowl 27, Dallas and Buffalo. Cowboys 52, Buffalo 17. Super Bowl 28, Dallas 30, Buffalo 13. Super Bowl 29, San Francisco 49, San Diego, as they were known at that time, 26. The moral of the story is that from my childhood, from my football experience growing up, watching the sport, watching the game religiously, when I fell in love with the sport, the Cowboys and the 49ers were in a different class, a different league than everyone else. It was them and then everyone else trying to compete for third place. Those two teams were the epitome of football excellence in the 90s. This rivalry dates back to the 70s. Staubach and Landry, Drew Pearson, Randy White, Ed Too Tall Jones, Hollywood Henderson, all these guys that they had back in the day. Great, legendary, iconic Hall of Fame football players. And then you go on the 49ers side, Bill Walsh, Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, Ronnie Lott, Dwight Clark, everyone, so on and so forth. You had legendary players that played on both sides of the rivalry. Charles Haley, Pro Football Hall of Famer. Ken Norton, very, very good, phenomenal football player. Not quite a Hall of Famer, but Ken Norton Jr. was one of those guys, like if there was a Hall of very good, he'd be in that. Outstanding linebacker for both Dallas and San Francisco. And of course, Deion Sanders, the man who tilted the balance of power in the NFC in the mid-90s based off his mere presence alone. He signs as a free agent with San Francisco in 94. The 49ers win the Super Bowl. He signs as a free agent with Dallas for the 95 season. The Cowboys win Super Bowl 30. There's too many layers to this. There's too much history. There's too much bad blood between both teams and the fan bases. If you're a football fan of a certain age, you don't understand what I'm talking about right now. You don't get it. If you're under the age of 30, you don't comprehend what I'm talking about right now. You didn't see it. You didn't grow up in it. You didn't really experience it. The only time you've seen Dallas and San Francisco in the playoffs was last season in the wild card game. For someone like me at 37 who's been watching football since I was 6 years old, I grew up on this. This is my childhood. I don't even mind saying this. I cried myself to sleep as a 7-year-old boy because the Cowboys beat the 49ers in the 92 NFC Championship game. A year later, I cried myself to sleep again as an 8-year-old because the Cowboys once again beat my 49ers in the NFC Championship game. A year later in 94, I experienced euphoria, jubilation, overall happiness. Ecstatic because finally the 49ers got over the hump. We beat those motherfuckers. We finally got them. 38-28 at Candlestick Park. Steve Young gets the proverbial monkey off his back and finally gets the Niners to the Super Bowl and gets past Dallas. All those previous disappointments and failures and heartbreaks, throw that shit out the window. It didn't matter anymore. It didn't matter in that moment. The Niners beat the Cowboys and then went on to the Super Bowl and absolutely manhandled the Chargers en route to that 5th Lombardi trophy. If Kyle Shanahan needs an extra body to suit up for this game on Sunday, count me in, put me in, coach. I'm ready for the game. I'm a fan. I'm a spectator. I'm ready for this game. I'll put pads on and run out there for a couple of plays, 1 series, 2 series, whatever. I'll do whatever you need, whatever coach needs me to do. I'll be a special teams gunner this Sunday for the 49ers. I don't give a fuck. I'm ready for this game. Niners and Cowboys, Dallas and San Francisco, Landry and Walsh, Staubach and Montana, Young and Aikman. Are you kidding me right now? This is football. This is football. This is the best representation of the sport from a historic standpoint as far as I'm concerned. You could talk about Bears, Packers. You could talk about Pittsburgh and Baltimore. You could talk about Cowboys and Redskins back in the day. I mean, first of all, everyone hates Dallas. Unless you're actually a Cowboys fan, everyone hates the fucking Cowboys. The Niners hate the Cowboys. The Redskins or the Commanders or the football team or the fucking Prince George's County Cherry Blossoms, whatever their name is, they hate Dallas. Philadelphia hates Dallas. New York hates Dallas. Everyone outside of the Cowboy fan bubble cannot fucking stand the Dallas Cowboys, this arrogant, pretentious douchebag franchise with stars on their helmet and the hole in the building, like I said earlier, because God wants to watch his favorite football team play. To which I would say, wouldn't it be easier for God to watch his favorite football team play if they played in an open-air outdoor stadium? But I digress. Also, God's supposed to be all-knowing and all-seeing, so wouldn't he be able to see the Cowboys play regardless of circumstance? Whatever. Who cares? Doesn't matter. Everyone hates the Cowboys, myself included. That's what makes this game so much fun. That's what makes this rivalry so impactful and so awesome. Half my family are Cowboys fans. The shit talking that goes on within family members and friends. I got a lot of friends that are Cowboys fans. I know these people, I like these people, I love some of these people. But with all that being said, as far as this week is concerned, Cowboys and 49ers, this week, it's fuck you. Straight like that, it's fuck you. You're a Cowboys fan, fuck you. With all due respect and professionalism and trying to be tactful about the situation, it's nothing personal. I don't really mean it, but like I said, as far as this Sunday is concerned, you a Cowboys fan, fuck you. It's just that simple. This game means too much, and it's a divisional playoff game. The winner obviously goes to the NFC Championship game. There's so much at stake, so much on the line. Who's going to win this game? Obviously, based on everything I've already said and based off all my podcasts, you already know I'm a 49er fan, so I have a level of bias coming into this game. Obviously, I think the Niners are going to win. And it's not just because of my bias. It's because I think they're a better football team. I think Dallas, first of all, great win on Monday night, Cowboys fans. Great win on Monday night in Tampa Bay, Florida at Raymond James Stadium. You may or may not have retired Tom Brady. You may or may not have ended the career of the greatest quarterback in the history of pro football. However, a few things I want to bring to your attention. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers were a shitty football team. This team averaged 18 points per game this season and won 8 games. So yeah, you took care of business. You won that playoff game on the road, tough situation against the GOAT. You shut him down. You made him look very ordinary. You made him look old. He's 45. You made Tom Brady look 75. He looked like an AARP quarterback on Monday night. But the challenge this Sunday that presents itself in front of you, if you're the Dallas Cowboys, if you're a Cowboy fan, the challenge this Sunday is a lot tougher. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers this season could not run the football. They average a putrid, pathetic 76.9 yards a game on the ground. Leonard Fournette might as well be running with cement shoes on. He gained no traction. The offensive line in shambles, a complete disaster. Couldn't create running lanes, couldn't protect for Tom Brady. The 49er offensive line, a lot better. The 49er running game, exponentially better. Christian McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Mason, Deebo Samuel, a part-time running back. That's 4 guys you got to account for out the backfield for the 49ers. And then you got the guys split out wide. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Juwan Jennings, Danny Gray, Ray McLeod, Kyle Juszczyk, Christian McCaffrey. The list goes on and on. There's a plethora of weapons for the 49ers. And they got a young quarterback, a rookie, Mr. Irrelevant or Mr. Relevant right now. The beast incarnate, the next big thing, the suplexer system, mayor of Suplex City, Brock Purdy under center for the 49ers. I went back and looked at the tape of the previous game versus Seattle. A lot of good things, especially in the second half. In the first half, a lot of negative things. About 4 or 5 passes that probably should have been picked. Some bad reads, throwing it right to the middle linebacker. Inaccurate balls, not at his best. You can talk about playoff jitters. You can talk about the conditions, the field, and the ball being wet. Brock Purdy did not play well at the beginning of that game against Seattle, but he made in-game adjustments. He learned on the fly. He corrected those mistakes in the second half, and he was on time. He was mostly accurate. Finished the game 18 of 30, 332 yards, 3 touchdowns passing, 1 touchdown running, 18 completions. 3 of them were touchdowns. The other 15 first downs. Looking at that tape, he missed a couple of touchdowns in that game. He missed Ray McLeod coming over across the field on a deep crosser. He missed him, but it was a first down completion on a shallow cross to Deebo Samuel. So like even when Brock Purdy does something wrong, even when he fucks up and doesn't see a wide open dude for a surefire touchdown, it's still a positive play. It's still a completion that goes for a first down. He did that like at least 3 times in that game against Seattle. He missed a touchdown, but at least he got a first down out of it. And San Francisco ended up scoring anyway. There were a number of pretty much every play in that game, every pass that Purdy completed. I said this on the previous podcast. There was at least 3 to 5 yards of separation for the 49er receiver on that play. There were multiple plays in that game. You had multiple guys open on the same play, like 2 or 3 different options you could have gone to on the same play on consecutive multiple plays. The play design of Kyle Shanahan. From what Kyle is able to do from a schematic and conceptual standpoint, it is amazing. It is fun to watch. It's a joy to watch as a 49er fan. The matchup in this game, I think to me, the biggest matchup in this game is going to be the chess match that takes place between 49ers head coach and offensive coordinator and play caller Kyle Shanahan and the Cowboys defensive coordinator, Dan Quinn. These two are former colleagues. They worked together in Atlanta when Dan Quinn was the head coach and Kyle Shanahan was the offensive coordinator. That was the season 2016. The Falcons went to the Super Bowl. Best offense in the NFL, Matt Ryan, league MVP. They were destroying people on a consistent basis. They had a 28-3 lead in Super Bowl 51 against the New England Patriots. And then, well, we all know how that story turned out. It was 28-3, and then it was 34-28. Tom Brady, the GOAT, led an absolutely historic comeback for the New England Patriots en route to their 5th championship in franchise history. But my point is, Dan and Kyle used to work together. They're familiar with each other. They have an idea. They kind of know what the other guy is going to do or wants to do. Now, we saw this matchup last season in the wild card round with these same 2 teams. That time it was in Dallas, and the final score was 23-17 San Francisco. To me, that game could have and should have been a much bigger disparity. Should have been a blowout. The Niners should have blown the Cowboys out in that game. They would have blown Dallas out of that game if it wasn't for the abysmal ineptitude and consistent, depressing mediocrity of Jimmy Garoppolo, who kept Dallas in the game, throwing boneheaded interceptions, inexplicably getting a fucking false start on a quarterback sneak. He couldn't wait for his left tackle, Trent Williams, to get set. Trent Williams, I still don't know why you send your left tackle in motion. That's on Kyle, too. I don't know why our left tackle's going in motion on a 4th and 1. All you need is 1 yard. Just line up and get it. That's the one thing Jimmy Garoppolo's exceptional at is quarterback sneaks. But on this play, he fucked up because he couldn't wait for his 325-pound left tackle to get set. So they call a false start. This, of course, opened the door for the Dallas Cowboys to get one more possession and attempt to win the game late. Dak Prescott goes on a mad scramble with less than 10 seconds on the clock, no timeouts, gets to the middle of the field, and then gets tackled and then tries to spot the ball himself. I guess Dak forgot the rules of the game or just didn't know that you got to hand the ball to the umpire first. He has to spot the ball, then you can run your next play. Caught up in the moment, I guess Dak had a mental lapse and forgot what the hell was going on. They call a 10-second, they throw a flag, 10-second runoff, the game is over. The 49ers win and advance to the second round to go play the Green Bay Packers. The Cowboys season came to an end on that play. That's how last season's game ended. I don't know how this game is going to end, but I do believe that San Francisco is going to win. Dallas has a chance. What Dallas has to do is negate all that yards of separation that San Francisco had in that first game against Seattle. Seattle played a lot of coverage. Rush 4, drop 7. But they also had guys trying to crowd the line of scrimmage and therefore not getting enough depth to cover the 49ers on the back end. In particular, that deep middle of the field was wide open the entire game. The Niners kept running dig routes over the middle, deep crossers over the middle, and guys were wide the fuck open. If Dallas can figure out a way to negate that and not make those same mistakes, if they can take away the airspace of the 49er receivers and force Brock Purdy to throw into tight windows, they got a chance. For Dallas offensively, Dak Prescott was outstanding. That was a wonderful performance. Magnificent on Monday night. He thoroughly outplayed Tom Brady. Everyone came into that game, myself included, talking about all the interceptions that Dak has thrown. 12 games played, 15 picks, led the NFL, a turnover machine the entire season. Clean football game on Monday night. No picks, 4 touchdown passes, 305 yards throwing through the air. Tremendous performance on Monday night against the Buccaneers. Against San Francisco, our defense is a lot better. Our pass rush, our defensive line is a lot better. I'm looking for Bosa and Omenahu, and I'm looking for Drake Jackson. I'm looking for Eric Armstead, Javon Kinlaw to have a big game this Sunday. They're going to have to. I think the Niners pass rush has to get home because, truthfully, I don't trust our secondary. I don't trust our guys on the back end. The second half of the season, they've made a lot of mistakes. They've been underwhelming. They have not played well. They have not played to a standard. The standard that they set early in the season. They got carved up by Jarrett Stidham. That happened. They've given up a number of big plays on the back end. You saw it last Saturday. DK Metcalf with a 53-yard touchdown reception being covered by Charvarius Mooney-Ward. That's our best DB. And he gave up like 10 catches for $129 or whatever last week to DK Metcalf, including that 53-yard touchdown reception. That's a big play, and you can't have that kind of shit in the playoffs. 9 times out of 10, when a team gets eliminated in the playoffs, they usually get beat because of some deficiency that they had the entire season, some weakness that they had, something they weren't very good at doing or couldn't stop, comes back to bite them in the playoffs. And my biggest fear is that for the 49ers, our inability to take away big, explosive plays down the field in the passing game could potentially come back to bite us. That's the biggest thing I worry about. Is CeeDee Lamb going to have a big game this Sunday? Mooney Ward had a terrible game versus Seahawks. I'm looking for him to bounce back and compensate and make up for that game this Sunday. Hopefully he does. I don't think Dallas has much more weapons outside of CeeDee Lamb. Michael Gallup coming off a torn ACL, to me, is not that impressive this season. They had to go out and sign T.Y. Hilton. T.Y. Hilton is past his prime. He's not what he used to be in Indianapolis all those years ago. So he's still a capable receiver, but he's not that guy anymore. And to me, that reeks of desperation. You had to go get a guy like that to try to add to your passing offense because you know you're deficient in that. You're not getting the level of production that you feel like you should get. They traded Amari Cooper to Cleveland, and that to me that hurt them in a lot of ways. They still had a great offense during the regular season, but I think in the playoffs and critical matchups like this against a team that still has a great defense in San Francisco, I have concern about giving up big plays in the passing game. That's why I feel like it's imperative that the 49er pass rush can create pressure and get home, get Dak Prescott on the ground. We did that last season, and the Cowboys' offensive line, they got some injuries. They're banged up front. We're healthy. The Niners are relatively healthy. There's no one really missing right now. All of our stars are available, healthy, rested. Nick Bosa, the last 2 games, has played a combined total of 65 snaps. Micah Parsons played 79 on Monday night. Dallas, that's another issue. Dallas could be tired, jet-lagged, exhausted. They've been on the road for a couple of weeks. They had to play that Monday night game in Tampa, fly back to Dallas, and then fly to California, to Santa Clara for this game on Sunday. That's a lot of travel. So you worry about jet lag. You worry about fatigue. Is that going to catch up with the Dallas Cowboys? I look at the running game as well. I mean, Dallas is going to have to run the football effectively in this game if they have a chance. And Zeke Elliott, to me, is washed. He's a shell of his former self. Tony Pollard is a very good running back outside the numbers, outside the tackles, running through the C gap, running through the A and the B gap, not so much. He's not the kind of guy, kind of a slender frame, not the kind of guy you want to send up the middle repeatedly. He'll probably break down, probably get hurt. So for that reason, I mean, the Niners' run defense was a little suspect in the first game. They gave up a long touchdown run to Kenneth Walker III. They were getting gashed in the run game in the first half. Made the adjustments in the second half and shut it down going forward. Seattle's run game was ineffective in the second half. So you hope those issues are getting cleaned up. Amenahu and guys like that got to do a better job at setting the edge and not allowing those big runs on the outside. Neutralize the running game and make Dak Prescott go win this football game. That's the key to success. That's the path to victory for the 49ers. Make Dallas one-dimensional. Take away the running game and make number 4 beat you. Can we trust him to have that kind of performance that he had on Monday night, consecutive games? Can he do it back-to-back games? I don't think he can. I think Dak is a pretty good quarterback. I don't know if he's that big-time quarterback that's going to lead the Cowboys to the promised land, and I don't think he can get it done this Sunday the same way he got it done on Monday night versus Tampa. Like I said, much better opponent, much stiffer competition. All those things being said, all those things being considered, and yes, I will admit my bias, but I'm taking the 49ers 29, Cowboys 18 this Sunday. So what does all of this mean? Well, based off all these picks, I'm looking at a Cincinnati-Kansas City AFC Championship game, a rematch of last year's AFC Championship game. Cincinnati won that game to move on to the Super Bowl. And then in the NFC, I'm looking at a Philadelphia-San Francisco NFC Championship game in Philadelphia, and that's going to be a war. That's going to be a fucking battle, a physical football game. To me, those two teams all year long have been the best teams in the NFC, San Francisco and Philadelphia. I feel like it's inevitable. I feel like both teams are on a collision course to meet up with each other in that NFC Championship game, and that's going to be a goddamn fight. That's going to be a bloodbath in its own right. San Francisco and Philadelphia, two physical, grown man football teams with a chance to go to the Super Bowl in the balance. That's going to be awesome. Sign me up for that. Philadelphia is the one team in the NFC I worried about all season long because I look at that pass rush and 70 sacks this season and the offense. And A.J. Brown, big-time receiver, big-name dude, great receiver in the NFL right now. The running game, Jalen Hurts is dual-threat athleticism. Dual-threat quarterbacks have given the 49ers problems for the past couple seasons, and Jalen Hurts definitely fits that definition. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, if we get there. Who knows? Just because I predict it doesn't mean it's going to be right. I mean, it's going to be right 90% of the time, but there is that 10% margin of error where, yes, Deion Gordon can be wrong 10% of the time. It does happen. Doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. So, yeah, I'm looking at Kansas City and Cincinnati, San Francisco and Philadelphia, And that's going to be awesome. Both those games are going to be great football games. But that's in the long term. In the short term, I cannot wait till Sunday. I really cannot wait till this game happens and to watch it and to sit down and just see how it all plays out. I just feel like San Francisco has too many weapons. Dallas doesn't have enough weapons. And same thing I said about the Giants and their chances of beating the Eagles earlier. There's too many ifs for Dallas. Like, if you can take McCaffrey or Debo out the game, just pick your poison. Who do you pick to take out the game? There's too many weapons for the 49ers. And Brock Purdy, playing well for the most part. I'm not going to say like he's playing perfect football because he's not, but he's playing at a high level. And that's the scariest part about Brock Purdy. He's playing at a high level, but there's still room to grow. Like I said, he's missing receivers early in the game. He's throwing the ball wide open to the middle linebacker sitting underneath in coverage. He made mistakes, but he corrected them as he went along, and that's so encouraging to see. I think overall the Niners are just a better and more complete football team, and they should anyway beat the Dallas Cowboys unless Dallas gets a superhuman performance out of Dak Prescott this Sunday, and that defense does what they're supposed to do, and Micah Parsons single-handedly wrecks the game for the 49ers. See what I'm talking about, though? There's too many ifs. There's too many ifs. Like, if this happens, if that happens. For the Niners, there's not that many ifs that got to happen. And I just feel like they're the better football team. They should win this game. Hopefully, I'm right. So with all that being said, this concludes this edition of the Dion Gordon Podcast. Eternally grateful, always humble, very much appreciative. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, at all times, never forget this. Tread lightly like a woodpecker with a headache. Picture me rolling. I'm out.